Welcome to the Curious About Nature podcast. This is a podcast for folks who want to connect with nature and rewild childhood. Hosted by Rachel Mills, Buttercup Learning's founder, an educator with 20 plus years of experience with a passion for animation, the natural world and conservation. Rachel focuses on getting digital kids outdoors and having fun in nature, promoting well-being and a can-do attitude to local wildlife conservation and sustainable living. Join her and her guests for their stories, experiences and tips to support outdoor learning and nature connection.
Welcome to the Curious About Nature podcast. This week I'm joined by Alex Dommett, the Community Engagement Officer for My Wild City. Hi there, Alex.
Hello.
It's lovely to have you on. We go back a little bit in terms of we met through my lecturing job at the University West of England. It was always very obvious to me that you have this real innate passion for nature. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you get into community engagement work?
Not a traditional route by any stretch. So I've always been in people-focused roles, and the nature element of it really came after my grandmother passed away, and I had spent a lot of time with her as a child in her back garden, and I moved into her house after she passed, so now I'm looking after the garden that I spent loads of time in as I was little. Yeah, I started to find out what works, like what does bring wildlife back, and I was building a pond in lockdown and planting wildflowers and just getting to meet all of these incredible little creatures. And then I thought, oh, this is working and maybe I can do this in my community or in my green space nearby. And it just spiraled from there. And I looked for my local conservation group. It wasn't active anymore. So I started to meet residents that were interested in it and set up our own one. And that's how it kind of snowballed. And then I ended up at the trust.
Yeah, it's a really interesting kind of journey, isn't it? I think there's lots of people that enjoy outdoor time with their children, and it seems like you've made a kind of profession of supporting families to get outside and engage. Can you tell us about the My Wild City project? So
My Wild City is a project that's funded by the Heritage Lottery Fund with thanks to national lottery payers. So if you play the lottery, thank you very much. It helps fund marvellous projects like this one. So it's all about improving 8 local wildlife sites across Bristol for wildlife and for visitors, linking in communities that live next door to these sites, showing wildlife in the city and basically the magic of nature that live in our neighbourhood. So we're doing habitat improvements, we're training local residents into how to care for nature. We do wildlife walks and monitoring and just getting people out and connected to nature on their doorstep and what they can do to protect it.
So what do you love about your work then?
Oh, good question. I think the thing that I love most is I think it can be really overwhelming, the situation we're in with biodiversity and the climate. And I think what I really love about this job is it takes my anger and my sadness and moves it into action. So I get to do something about it. And I get to work with people that are also really passionate about it. And I get to meet people and talk about wildlife and talk about their stories and their histories. And that's the best bit about it, really, is finding out why people love wildlife.
Yeah, that completely resonates with me. It's the thing that I really enjoy about these podcast episodes is the conversations that you have both on camera and off camera. And I've been picking all of the resources that people have mentioned, whether that's books or online stuff, and really learning so much from other people. I think there's so much to enjoy, really. You spend quite a lot of time working with families and getting them outside and understanding the natural world. How do you think families can get involved in nature conservation?
I think there's lots of different ways of getting involved. I think the main thing to remember is to not feel intimidated. And I think it can feel quite daunting sometimes if you're a parent and you want to do stuff outside with your children and you feel like you have to know everything or know the name of everything or have expensive kit. And it's not about that at all. You can go out with no kit, little ecology knowledge, and it's just about getting to know where you live, like getting outdoors, exploring, and just being guided by what you find interesting, what your children find interesting, what do you find beautiful, what do you find repulsive, and just being led by that, and then finding the things that you're really interested in, building on them. Maybe you do find that there's a local environment group where you live. Maybe they have a gardening group, you can go and help plant wildflowers. Often in communities there's kind of family litter picks that you can get involved with. And if you have like your own garden space or a balcony or a windowsill, you can plant something or do something for nature. So I think there's lots of different ways that you can get involved. I think it's just doing it in a way that's at your own pace and feels meaningful to you, and to not get bamboozled by too many technical things, but just to get out and enjoy it.
I love that. It's those kind of little small steps, isn't it, that we can do that start to help us connect with nature as well. So you've been involved in lots of citizen science projects. What is citizen science and how can families take part?
So citizen science is usually trying to engage the public with a particular scientific question that scientists need help with. So a really good example of that is the Big Garden Bird Watch. So last year, 700,000 people took part of watching the birds in their garden for an hour and recording what they saw and then feeding it back to the RSPB. And that helps them build a picture of how different species are faring and then tailoring conservation action towards that. And there's lots of different citizen science projects that you can get involved with at various levels. So some of them you might print off a piece of paper with loads of butterflies on and tick them off and then send back what you've seen, similar to the Birdwatch. Or some of them, there's a city nature challenge where you go out with an app and you record as much as you see over one weekend, and there's people all across the world doing that, and it's the city to record the most wildlife. So it's worth searching different charities, different organisations, and finding one that kind of fits with you and fits with your children and feels, I suppose the butterflies and the birds are the easiest ones to do because you can tick them off.
Yeah, no, they're absolutely perfect, aren't they, for younger children who don't want something really complicated. You don't need lots of kit. It's something that anyone could do then, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
What's your favourite session or maybe your favourite project that you've worked on?
Favourite session? I always say this, but my favourite thing that's ever happened in my Well City is, and it was because of citizen science. So basically on the iNaturalist app, which is used for the City Nature Challenge, it's a really good app to help you basically take a picture, other people will look at it and help confirm the ID of what you've seen basically. And I was searching around on some of our My Well City sites to see what I could find, and I found an unverified picture of a glowworm beetle. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And we'd been managing the site for glowworms, we'd been creating these little bays for them, but none of us had ever seen one. And the last time a resident saw one was over a decade ago. The last record of one was over, I think, 40 years ago officially. So we had no idea if they were really still there. And so we did this glowworm walk, not really knowing if we were going to see any. We took some bat detectors out as well, so we were detecting all the little bat noises in their kind of raspberries as they were eating moths on the detectors. And on the way back, at the end of the walk, when we hadn't seen any glowworms, all of a sudden we just saw this little green ember in the grass, and there they were. And it was just such a magical moment to see residents completely elated that they had seen them, and it brings up lots of childhood memories for people, like particular species especially like that are really enigmatic, quite elusive. It brings out real emotion. And afterwards, like, we were all looking around, taking turns to looking at them, and then a resident shouted out shooting star, and we looked up and there were shooting stars, glowworms fluorescing, a full moon. And it's just at that moment you think, wow, the planet is just absolutely beautiful and just bonkers that in that moment all of this incredible stuff was happening. You can't plan for that. So I think that's the thing I also love about this sort of work, is that you're putting everything in nature's hands and you're waiting for them to show themselves to you essentially, and it's such a privilege when they do, and you're sharing that experience with other people. And that's ultimately how we used to experience nature as people together and celebrate it and be in that moment together.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I've noticed. I've been a lot more connected to the sort of seasons, and even just on a school walk, being a bit more mindful of what I'm looking out for and just being a bit more observant. So my daughter's picked up on that as well, and we can sometimes take a lot longer to walk to school and home again because we're stopping and looking at things. And I think we all lead such busy lives, we don't have that time, or we don't give ourselves the time to stop and just take a break from things and look around us. But yeah, it is amazing what we can see on our own doorsteps, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. In lockdown, particularly, I got to know the concrete posts at the bottom of my garden very well. And just going out there every day, it looks derelict and unused. It's just all really old concrete, asbestos roof, not very inviting. And there's this amazing wildflower that had grown up through the crack, and on it was just this incredible little spider, which was a zebra jumping spider. And I'd go out every day, I'd be there with my coffee, and then I'd watch this little spider eat other little spiders. And just, it's amazing what you can find just in a really small gap that looks unused. And there's life, and it's bizarre that it's called a zebra jumping spider. It does actually jump, and it's incredible. That's just out there doing its thing in my back garden on a concrete post.
Yeah, I'm aware that you're very much a fan of bugs and the good old insects and stuff. Do you have any sort of favourite fact?
Yeah, I think my love of bugs has actually come from working with children so much, because they're at that level, they're closer to the ground, they're more connected to all of these kind of miniature and macro worlds. So one of my favourite ones, I was doing a My Wild Child session, and a 3-year-old came up to me and said, I found a ladybird. So we were like, okay, we all rushed over, looked at the ladybird. But it was a ladybird that had just hatched, and it hadn't got any spots yet. So we were just looking at this orange ladybird, and I had no idea at that point that ladybirds hatched without their spots. And there we all were together, and we would have never found that out as a group unless that 3-year-old had found that little ladybird. So that was a magical moment. And also other good bug facts that I found out with kids. Snails have 14,000 teeth, a garden snail.
Yeah, that's just amazing, isn't it? It's bizarre.
It's mad. And the children find that hilarious, because I think they imagine loads of human teeth, but they're just in rows across its tongue. So that's quite exciting, a snaily tooth tongue. And then with glowworms, it's quite gruesome, but they're not actually a worm, they're a beetle, but they hook on to the back of snail shells and secrete this chemical in them which turns the snail into a milkshake. So basically glowworms eat snail milkshakes. So that's another fabulous bug fact.
Yeah, they're absolutely brilliant. It's the sort of thing that kids absolutely love. Anything that's a bit gruesome and a bit gross is always a winner, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got here actually a dragonfly larvae. And it's a really good thing to look for as families, actually. If you've got a local pond near to you, they crawl up onto the irises before they come out into a dragonfly form. But whilst they're in the pond, they move around basically by blowing air out of their bottoms. So I know bottoms, poos, gruesome, all of those sorts of things kids just love, and insects provide all of that.
Yeah. Definitely. So if I'm looking for bug hunting activities to do in weekends, Easter, some holidays, that kind of thing, what could I maybe do in my local park or garden?
I think one of the things you can do is go searching for butterflies. A really nice thing to do in summer, and kind of figure out what plants they enjoy the most, or are they sunning themselves, or sometimes you might see them fighting for territory a little bit. You could put an old banana out in your back garden or in your local park and see if any butterflies or moths come down to feed off of it. You can look for bees. Quite a nice thing to do, look for all the big bumblebees and see if you can spot some of the smaller ones that often people think are wasps, but all of these really tiny solitary bees that children really like finding, that often if you lie down in the grass, which I like doing in the back garden, you might see some little holes. If you wait long enough, you'll be faced by a tiny little furrow bee just popping up in front of you out of its nest hole, which is very adorable. And other bug hunting things, just lifting logs and pebbles and searching damp places, looking in the cracks and crevices of old trees. You might find beetles or woodlice, and pretend you're a bug, essentially. You need to channel your inner bug.
I love that. And I think it is that, how you described it is very appealing anyway. And just having the patience to just sit still and wait for things to happen, I think that's a really good skill to learn as a child, is patience.
Yeah, and I think with insects, I really like insects. I think because you're not looking for a fox or a stoat or an owl or things that are really difficult to find. I think the wonder of insects is that they're everywhere, and you can have a wildlife encounter in most places in your neighbourhood with an insect. And sometimes I was trying to read a book in the back garden. I just had it laid out on the grass. And then all of these insects were just the paper. I just gave up reading, and I was just watching shadows of them walking up the grass, reflect on the paper. And I think it's, like you say, it's just slowing down and just being aware of what's around you, and then you'll begin to notice more, and nature will come to you. It's like you just need to melt into the environment a little bit, and then everything that you thought was a flat piece of paper in front of you of green just starts to move.
Have you got any thoughts on how we can all better align with seasons and nature?
A really nice way is to obviously slow down, and often the seasons reflect your inner nature as well. So our inner health can be guided by the seasons. So in winter, it's restoring ourselves, imagining yourself as a fallow field and storing up all that nutrients to come out and emerge again in spring and be seen in summer. And a really good way to do that is to look at that help, that give you tips and ideas every month of the different moons, what's happening in nature. Is there a celebration? Is it wassailing time? Is it spring equinox? All of those different things, like celebrating the solstices, is a really nice idea as well. And just being grateful and having those moments across the year where you share your gratitude for nature. With My Wild Cities, some of it we've tried to align to a Celtic calendar. So in May, we'll go and celebrate the orchards, we'll celebrate the blossom, and that's a really nice way to, it's like growing food as well, is a really good way of seeing what's in season and just being guided by nature's rhythms, seeing what's outside and mirroring that in yourself.
How do you feel about biodiversity loss and the state of British wildlife?
It can feel really overwhelming, and the fact that the UK is one of the most nature depleted countries in the world is really stark. But what I've learned is you can feel really angry about that, and lots of people do feel angry, or you can feel overwhelmed. But I find hope in the fact that there are so many fantastic people in communities already doing things for wildlife, and there's been such a surge in kind of people becoming interested in rewilding, and we've got like beavers being reintroduced, and nature is becoming at the forefront of so many things now. We know the solutions, we know what to do, so we have the answers, and we just need to work together to achieve them, and there are people doing that already.
Yeah, you picked up on this a little bit already, but what do you think the actions need to be to support wildlife and wildlife conservation?
So there's loads of different things we can do nationally, the way we govern, the way we farm, the way we look after land, and also there's things that we can do at work, and there's things we can do as a family, there's things we can do in our community, so we can get involved with our local conservation groups. More broadly, we need to be making bigger, better connected reserves where wildlife can move, more dynamic spaces, reducing pesticides, cleaning up our waterways. So yeah, there's lots we can be doing, and it's happening. So just jump on board and get involved.
Brilliant. So what's next for you and My Wild City?
So we've got the last few months of the project coming up. So we're doing lots of training sessions. So we've been training park staff as well to come out and learn how to look after their spaces. We've got how to identify bees, how to look after hedgerows, how to create wildflower meadows and look after them. We're training up residents to look for waterfalls. And also we'll be collecting community vision and aspiration for nature in their area. So over the past few months, I've been training in community organising. I advise anyone who's interested in doing stuff in their community to look up the National Academy of Community Organisers. It's a really interesting framework of how to bring people on board and move things in a sustainable way that's more long term. Another way that you can get involved with nature conservation is nationally, as the Wildlife Trust, we've launched this project called Team Wilder, basically full of resources that are created by your neighbours, by your local communities. If someone's made a pond, how did they do it? What were the challenges? If someone's tried to engage with their local council about nature-friendly practices, how did they do it? And you can share what you've done too, and it's just building a movement of people that are supporting nature. And we know that if 1 in 4 people are taking action for wildlife, it's like a societal tipping point. So if we get a quarter of people doing that, it's seen as the social norm, and then it becomes like a wave, hopefully, of people taking action and supporting wildlife.
I love your positivity, Alex, and there's so many accessible ways to support nature that you've mentioned today. So thank you so much for that. Where can people find the My Wild City project, either online or in person?
So you can find us online. It's www.avonwildlifetrust.org.uk/mywildcity. And you can also search on the website for Team Wilder and other community projects we have, our reserves, how to get involved. And if you're based in Bristol, you can find the My Wild City project in person. The main information about that is on the website. There's quite a few places, but it's Knoll, Stockwood, Hengrove, Fishpond, St George, Lawrence Weston. I think I've covered them all.
Yeah, so if you're Bristol based, definitely check out the project and certainly access the other resource links that Alex has mentioned today. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Curious About Nature. If you would like to keep getting nature and outdoor learning stories and tips, hit subscribe on the podcast so you never miss an episode. Don't forget to give a 5-star rating and review to support our podcast reach. To deepen your child's connection with nature and natural world education, please check out the Nature Curious subscription box. Head over to the website buttercuplearning.com to further support your family's nature journey.